Imagine being responsible for a band you cannot truly command. You choose the music, you rehearse the players. You are expected to improve the performance, maintain standards, teach the weak, discipline the careless, satisfy the colonel, and somehow prevent the trombones from behaving as an independent political movement. But when trouble comes, your authority dissolves. You are the conductor, but not quite a superior. You lead the music, but perhaps not the men. This was one of Frédéric Berr's great complaints in his 1838 book, The Need to Reconstitute the School of Military Music. For Berr, the problem of French regimental music was not only about bad players or inadequate instrumentation, it was also about authority. Who was actually in charge of the band? And did the institution recognise that authority clearly enough for the band to function? At first glance, that may sound like a dry administrative question. It is not. Anyone who has ever conducted an ensemble knows that musical authority is delicate. A conductor cannot lead by waving arms alone. The role depends on trust, skill, structure, habit, and recognition. The players must accept that the person in front has the right and the competence to shape the performance. In a civilian ensemble, that authority may come from appointment, respect, tradition, contract, or just sheer musical ability. In an army, things are more complicated. An army is built on rank. Authority must be visible, it must be legally recognised, and it must fit into the hierarchy. And Frédéric Berr thought military bands had become a mess precisely because musical authority and military authority no longer matched. His clearest example concerns the gagiste conductor. A gagiste was a paid musician attached to a regiment without being fully bound to military service. As we saw in the previous episode, Berr disliked this system intensely. He thought the gagistes were unstable, difficult to discipline, and often insufficiently committed to the regiment. But the problem became even worse when a gagiste was made conductor, because then the band had someone responsible for direction who did not necessarily possess recognised military authority over soldier musicians. And Berr gives a striking case. During a rehearsal, a soldier of the 6th Line Infantry rudely insulted his music director, who was a gagiste. The soldier then went further. He threw his instrument and notebook at the conductor's head. Now, as rehearsal disputes go, this is not ideal. Most conductors would prefer a quiet conversation, perhaps a stern glance, perhaps the traditional phrase, "Let us take that again, and this time with some interest." But an instrument and notebook to the head suggests that ensemble culture has broken down. The colonel of the regiment treated the matter seriously. He ordered the soldier to appear before the War Council in Paris, accused of assaulting a superior officer in the performance of his duties. That seems logical enough. The conductor was directing the rehearsal, the soldier attacked him. Surely this was an assault on a superior. But the case did not hold. The charge was dismissed. The War Council declared that the title of music conductor, when given to a gagiste, did not oblige a soldier to respect him as a superior officer. And the soldier was absolved. There, in one absurd scene, is Berr's problem. The conductor was responsible enough to be attacked, but not authoritative enough to be protected. He could be expected to lead the band, but the institution did not fully recognise his authority over the men he was supposed to lead. That is not merely embarrassing, it is fatal to discipline. Imagine trying to conduct after that. Imagine standing in front of the same band, raising the baton, and knowing that the system itself has just announced that your authority is, at best, decorative. One suspects the second clarinets may not be watching very closely. Berr's point is not that conductors should be tyrants, it is that responsibility without authority is a recipe for disorder. If a bandmaster is expected to produce musical results, he must be given a position that allows him to lead. But the problem was not limited to gagiste conductors. Berr also considers what happens when music directors decide to enter military service. Some had done exactly that, realising that their authority as civilians was too uncertain. They enlisted and counted as soldiers, corporals or sergeants in the companies. But this produced new absurdities. If the bandmaster is only a private soldier, he has no real authority over the other soldiers under his command as musicians, and certainly not over corporals or sergeants attached to the band. If he is a corporal, he still has no authority over a sergeant. If he is a sergeant, he may outrank some musicians, but then he no longer properly fulfills the duties of a company sergeant, and he blocks the advancement of others. Berr even says that he cannot pass inspection both as a music conductor and as a company sergeant. That, he says, would be fraud. One hears his exasperation. Every attempted solution creates another contradiction. The conductor must be military enough to command, but if he is placed in an ordinary military rank, the rank does not fit the musical function. The army has ranks for soldiers. It does not yet have a proper structural place for the artist who must command soldiers musically. And then comes one of Berr's most revealing complaints. The conductor, even if musically educated, may still find above him the drum major, who holds the rank of sergeant major. The drum major may have authority by rank. The conductor may have knowledge by art. And Berr is offended that an artist requiring education and special knowledge should be subordinated to someone he considers ordinarily unqualified. This is more than professional pride. It is a question of whether institutions know how to recognise expertise. Who should have authority in musical matters? The person with rank or the person with knowledge? Ideally, of course, the institution should make these things align. It should give proper recognised status to the person whose musical responsibility requires leadership. That is why Berr wants musicians to have ranks and honoraria suited to their functions. He's trying to solve the mismatch. A bandmaster should not be a tolerated outsider, nor an awkwardly placed private, nor a corporal without sufficient authority, nor a sergeant trapped in the wrong hierarchy. He should have a position that corresponds to what he is actually required to do. This is a strikingly modern problem. Many musical organisations still suffer when responsibility and authority do not align. A conductor may be blamed for standards but given no control over attendance. A teacher may be expected to build a program but given no time, budget or timetable support. A music director may be responsible for artistic quality while decisions about staffing, repertoire, rehearsal conditions or resources are made elsewhere. A committee may ask for excellence while quietly removing the conditions that make excellence possible. Then, everyone is surprised when the music suffers. Frédéric Berr would not be surprised. He would ask a simple question. Does the person responsible for the music have the authority needed to make the music work? If the answer is no, the system is poorly designed. This is why episode 6 was about systems, and episode 7 was about unstable hired musicians, the gagistes. This episode brings those ideas together. A good band needs more than players. It needs leadership that the institution itself recognises. Not merely in words, but in structure. Berr's bandmaster is caught between two worlds. He belongs to the world of art, where authority comes from skill, knowledge, ear, taste and experience. But he also works inside the world of the army, where authority comes from rank, law, appointment and hierarchy. If those worlds do not speak to each other, the band becomes unstable. The conductor may know what must be done, but lack the power to do it. And then discipline collapses. Sometimes literally, in the form of a notebook and instrument travelling toward his head. A bandmaster cannot build a band if the system does not allow him to lead, and perhaps that is true of all cultural work. If we ask people to carry responsibility, we must give them the authority, trust and resources that responsibility requires. Otherwise, we are not building institutions, we are setting traps. You've been listening to The Musical Archeologist, Forgotten Ideas from Music's Past. Written and presented by me, Craig Dabelstein. The music for this podcast was composed by Jeffrey Young. The Musical Archeologist is one of many projects from Maxime's Music, dedicated to recovering forgotten music, forgotten writings, and forgotten musical worlds. Thank you for listening.